So lately I've been seeing a lot of adverts popping up for these roof tents that you can just bolt onto any car that turns it into a camper car. Now these tents seemed absolutely awesome, so I had to go online and check them out, and then I saw the price.
And so we don't have the capacity.
I've always wanted to build my own camper van, never had the budget for that, but I don't even have the budget for one of these rooftop tents. So I've decided I'm going to make my own rooftop tent, which is going to be so much cheaper. It may not be better, but it's going to be cheaper. Now, as easy as it is just to screw a bit of board on top of my car and just pitch up a tent on the roof, I'm not going to do it like that. I'm going to make it much like the ones you can buy online, where it all folds out together and the setup time is kept to a minimum. So I went online and did some research, and some awesome people have done this as well with really good results. So I was confident. I mean, of course, how hard could it be? So to start off the build, my all-time favourite, some plywood boards. I went for the 12mm thick option here, mainly due to the price and the weight. 18mm ply could have been better, but I have to get this thing off the car once it's done, and I don't really want to dismantle the whole lot. So with that, I set to cutting it. I bought two boards that I was going to both cut the same size and hinge them together, so the top board will match the bottom board and they will hinge on top of each other. I made them basically as big as I could get on the roof of my car without it sticking out too far or causing any problems, so I'd have the most space available to use. I then painted the plywood to give it a little bit of protection from the rain and such. Plywood is quite resistant, but I don't think it's going to like getting that wet very often. But this way it has a little bit of resistance. I'm sure there's better ways of protecting the wood for a longer period of time, but I think the paint will suffice for what I need. Especially as the tent and the cover when it's packed away will protect it from most of the weathering anyway. I think some cheap outdoor paint will suffice. So we move on next to one of the more technical parts of this build, the hinges. These are to achieve a few things. Now I had some 2-inch wide by 5mm thick metal bar that I had bought for a roof rack project. Never got around to doing that, but it was perfect for making up my hinges. These hinges would have to take some of the weight of the board that folds out from the car when the tent is erect, as well as being able to fold up, leaving a gap for the tent to fold up into. So these hinges have to be pretty hardy. Not only that, these would also double up with bolts in them to hold the rods for the pop-up tent. That way, as we open up the base frame, the tent would just pop out with it as if like magic. I'm basically currently just doing the majority of cuts, so cutting them off and just putting a hole through. Probably hacksaw the rest at the garage, use the vise to bend them. I am currently redoing this one. It just seems a little bit too thin to get 2 bolts in to screw up the 10 rods. I don't know how well these are going to work. I'm kind of hoping they're going to work. So they're the 2 hinges I got, and they do slot over each other like that. But a lot of people have like fancy curves and things, but if there's a bolt through there, they're gonna hinge. Like, I mean, they're very crude, yes. Whether we'll run into problems leaving them boxy like this, I might smooth the edges, like grind the edges off a bit so they're all smooth, but I can see no problems with that personally. But I guess we'll find out the hard way. I'm no metalwork mechanic person. I also had to put 5 holes in each piece of metal, 1 for the main hinging bolt, 2 to mount it to the board, and then 2 in the middle that I'd eventually mount the tent rods to. This was actually the most time consuming bit. Copyright music. Yes. Same drilling as well as it was. So to allow for the tent to be able to actually fold completely in half, I'm going to unfortunately have to cut the tent rods. This one has 2, one being slightly bigger than the other, which makes this all the more challenging to get them mounted to the hinges. I'm mounting them to the hinges so that way when it all opens up, the tent is held and it will all pop out once you open up the base. I was originally going to just bore a hole through some large bolts and then tighten them up with a nut. However, we weren't sure if the fiberglass rods would be able to handle the tension. We thought they might just crunch and split. So I ended up making some really over-engineered elaborate clamp using some copper pipe, which I used 2 bits of metal matching the sizes of the rods and a third piece in the middle to try and crunch it in the vise to form sort of a half figure of 8 shape. Trying to keep it all aligned and straight was very difficult. And then come the next problem. I had to drill 2 holes in it to get 2 bolts through to bolt them to the hinges. The shape just made this really difficult, and the bits kept binding. It was an absolute mess. This by far was the most laborious and tedious bit of the whole thing. It just didn't work very well. This definitely needs a better bracket design.
Something like that, hopefully. Again, look, it's pushed that in the wrong place again. Pushed it more towards the middle, I don't like that.
How many more times are you going to do that?
I don't know. Too many. Any more times is too many. That side looks really good.
And the other side just looks like
Bit
it's
squished. Can't vise it up too tight because it will
No, your bend thing.
flatten it. God, my chuck can't hold it tight enough, that's the problem. Just bends it in the middle.
Yeah, sort of.
Well, that's fucked then.
Yeah.
How many more?
After doing 3 more of those bloody things, it was time to do something a bit better. It was time to work on the mounting brackets for all of this. So my car has 2 solid roof bars going right across. These are something I built before, as again, trying to find and buy some roof bars to fit this car were hard to find and too expensive if I could find them. So as usual, DIY'd it. So for this I have some 2.5mm rectangular iron bars. These were actually also bought for the roof rack build I never did, and it's the same stuff that I've used for the roof bars on the car. I've since sanded them all down and got all the rust off and painted them all up as they were left outside for a while, much the same as the metal pieces I used for the hinges. But all I'm going to do now is measure it up, mark out where I want them to sit on top of the roof bars, drill a big hole and drill a notch through the middle of it. That way I can get the head of a coach bolt in and slide it along and clamp it up where it needs to be.
I've run out of grinder.
Once I bolted these bars onto my roof bars, I then fixed the boards down onto them. For this, I just got some metal screws, drilled some pilot holes, and just sent them. Once the board had been fixed, I set about putting the hinges on that. If you wonder why I'm using cable tray here, it's just to try and spread out some of the load of the bolts for the hinges. Whether this works, I'm not actually sure, but the idea is there. Next fun and games.
Mining that.
It might actually rust there now. I've probably taken the galvanising coat off. But
I'm about to get on video you losing your hand.
maybe. My screen! Let's put my disgraceful bit of metal on, which is probably going to want to stick out. This is the best we're going to get from that. We want
That bit in the, yeah.
might have been that one then. No, that won't go there. So it's got to be that one. It's bending in.
Screw bends outwards.
There we go.
The bolt bends outwards on the side. The bolt there bends that way.
Well,
That's why it wouldn't go on.
send it. Are they going to go together? Yeah. This is going to take a while. Yeah, I made them so bloody close.
That's what I was wondering when you're drilling the holes.
But I made it so they're a one spanner now. You don't need an extra ratchet. That's planned. That each bolt will help itself in.
Yeah, feeds it, yeah. That was definitely very planned.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Some might say I'm not very good at what I'm doing. Why'd I take it out? I don't do any tool abuse, mate. Do it that way.
Oh. Eventually.
I might be done after the whole thing. Why is the nut bigger? Why is that 14? It's the problem with using scraps of shit.
You're spinning it slightly.
So it doesn't get loose. Wow. Staying like that, I suppose. It's not going anywhere, clearly. Oh, no. How's that making it? What? To nip that up.
There we go.
Eventually, both the brackets were fixed and now I could actually test to see if they worked. After my crash test, another day dawned. To prevent it bowing in the middle and remove some of that springiness, I screwed in a couple of battens. And I then set to work installing the ladder. I think I sent her a little too hard, but I sent that too hard and it stripped it. I guess bigger screw? I then really productively stared at it. Right, there's a whole list of problems, which is not what I need right now. For some reason I didn't realise this was going to be on top, so I'm going to have to change it and find some nuts and bolts for this hinge. The hinge does not extend out fully, so I lose a lot of my adjustability. That is as far as the ladder can extend out the way, which I need that to move in and out to actually sort of adjust this, fine tune if you will, to make it level. Yeah, I need it so this can twist more, but at the same time I don't want it so all the weight's on the hinges at any point. As with all my projects, there's always some hurdles to get over. I don't know if you can really see it, but they ain't level at all. Although so there'll be a massive like indentation in my arse when I'm laying down, but that could be solved. I'll just drill a couple of holes when that's level, and then all I could have to do is fire a bolt. But if I get 4 holes in that bit of wood, into the second bit of wood, when it's fully extended, I can just fire 4 bolts into it, you know, just literally push them in just to hold it level. I think the issue is my massive tent and how big my platform is. It's sagging over there. But it's just test run, I haven't got many screws in it yet. All I've done is put a block of wood in there, and then the top of the hinge actually bolts into the top of the ladder run there. But I actually do have a small advantage in adjusting the height of the ladder, because it's a Citroen. It's an old Citroen, so I do have the hydraulic suspension to lift her up and down. So I do actually have a bit of a benefit here of being able to adjust the ride height. Whether this will help, I don't know. Yeah, the other issue I find is folding the bloody thing back up, because as soon as you start folding the ladder back up, as soon as it reaches that tipping point and it tips that way, the ladder then opens again and the thing goes absolutely crashing down. Like, I mean crashing down. I'm going to try fold it up again and we'll see what happens. As you can see, it still went wrong. Not as bad. At any point of the ladder that isn't extended, it will slide out. Maybe my ladder's too long. Perhaps I should have ordered a shorter ladder, but I thought all the time I'm not using it on here, I'll take it in the work van, use it at work. So, right. So what I've done here is I've just quickly whacked in a bit of scrap plyboard to pinch these two next to each other. But anyway, I just did that just to bring them to level, and then put some 10mm holes right through, and that should hopefully sit it completely flush. So yeah, that's what I've done there. The other question is what I'm going to do with these bits sticking out from the ladder hinges. I don't know, because I think the tent will overlap these, but we'll see. There's a little gap between the front door of the tent and the inner piece. Hopefully they'll sit in there, and maybe I can use them to have a little couple of handles or something to help me get up the ladder. That would work out perfectly if that's the case. It was at this point though I realised it could really do with some more strength. So there is a major flaw in my design here, as you can probably tell. Using such thin plyboards to save on weight, and having it so wide because bigger is better, also I thought. If I put weight on any of the folding out pieces, it does flex a lot. While I don't think it's going to break or snap off, the flex is rather unnerving. So to try and stop this, I got some old square metal bars and I screwed a few diagonally into place and one along by the ladder. Still, it's not 100% perfect, there's still some flex, but I think this should add a little bit more strength. Like I said before, definitely worth keeping this build on a smaller scale, unless you don't mind it being really heavy and getting thicker boards. Realistically, the best solution would be to have an extra bar or two actually come out from the main roof bar to support over here. That's probably something that could be implemented in future. My genius is almost frightening. So, I have these old awning poles. So I cut them down. All I've done is cut 2 squares of plywood that I'd left over and drill a hole in one just to slot this in. Literally it's just slotted in, and they have a peg that goes in the ground. So all I've got to do is lift the roof up, slot it in like so. Look at that. Much more solid. It's nothing crazy. Maybe I'll think of something to keep it in there, but it shouldn't go anywhere. He says it wobbling around. In the end, I just added another layer of ply just to deepen the slot that the pole would slide into. Now with the base finally completed, I could see how well the tent was going to sit on top of it.
That.
Lovely, horrible. Ways. Trying to get this ways. That's like that. So this is the really scary part. I have to cut the tent rods so that I can feed them into my custom bolts so that they open up the tent with the hinges. Right, I'm now holding 2 ticking time bombs. I had no idea what these rods were going to be made of when I bought the tent. I was just assuming they were going to be fiberglass, which they were. My granddad had actually suggested the clamp system we made using the copper pipes. While it being really difficult to use, it was a good idea. I feel like maybe the bolt idea I had previously would have just split the rods. I don't know. It's worked for someone else, so perhaps the easier option is the better one here. Sounds like
Metal.
ah.
Oh, it actually isn't.
Oh no, oh no, oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god. Oh no.
Oh, it's definitely fiberglass.
Oh no. But yeah, I had to struggle like mad to try and poke the rods through these little copper pipe holdall things that I had made, which the fibres kept breaking and splitting, so they really didn't want to go through. It kept stabbing and getting all on my skin. My arms were all ugh. It wasn't very fun. This was the worst bit of the build by far. But that being said, after a bit of faffing about, it did work really well and it did hold them in place. So guess that's a win.
Although now it's split, is that gonna want to go in?
Oh. Where this design's going to fall short, and I knew it would.
Yeah.
I didn't want little hoops to put it through, I wanted the bolts. But it was right about probably. Getting them back to that is just, it's like fully taut already. Well, whereas now I don't know whether to cut the other one or bolt these in then cut the one. The other thing that made it hard was obviously the tent ended up trying to tort itself completely in different directions. The rods just. I just recommend wear gloves when you're cutting the fiberglass rods. The fibres do get in you and they do itch like crazy. No. Okay, it's gone. Good.
Well.
So that's what I'm dealing with. Why is it like that? Are these things really that well like engineered that they're just like precision perfect?
Maybe.
Because it's like they're both in the same place they were.
Well, the only difference is the fact you have the slight gap. Even then, when you put them together and push it down, it didn't want to.
Hopeful that it would sort out the other side not wanting to bend into shape, I started on the next side. It just splits with
Yeah, the first.
While I thought things couldn't get much worse while I was trying to faff about with these tent rods getting stabbed by the fiberglass as they didn't really want to go into place and they kept springing everywhere, disaster struck. My friend, who had been helping me do a lot of the camera work so I could get on, he decided he was going to put the camera down on the side to give me a hand, and the tent pinged and it knocked the camera off, crashing into the floor. Now thankfully the camera landed on grass and the camera is all okay, however the lens did end up breaking. But after all that, understandably we were both pretty annoyed by that point, so we just worked on, got the tent rods in place and all bolted up. And the next day I come out with my other lens and carried on recording. Well, it works. It's just tight in places. This hinge here has worked a lot better than the other side. As you can see, this side is kind of more taut upwards. Like, I can't get the rods down as easy. Oh yeah, you know things are getting technical when you break out the cable ties. So with that, I started to screw down the tent. For the most part, I just put screws into the loops for tent pegs, but for round the back where there wasn't much fixing, I've braved it and put screws right through the tent, but I have put big washers on top of the screws to sort of hold down the tent rod that goes round the back. So I've started screwing it down, and it seems to be these definitely have too much excess. I'm going to try and cheat and try and push them through. Here, I've got it kind of extended up. I'm going to try and push them through here and then just cut them off afterwards. See if I can get rid of some of the excess on this and possibly that one as well. Right, I've pushed them through and they're sticking out, so I'll cut them off. Hopefully that'll be enough. Hopefully it doesn't need to come out of both sides, because I'm going to do enough to suffice for both. Hopefully it just kind of pulls through around the tent. For some reason I just didn't record it. I used an angle grinder to cut the rods, and in this position it was so much easier. And it seemed to fix the problem a little bit too. Oh, and I made these cool little handles too. All I used was some old copper pipe, cut it up and drilled some holes to put the tops of the bolts that were sticking up from the ladder through. A little bit fiddly to get the nut inside the pipe and do it up, but managed it, and yeah, some quite fancy looking little handles, I might say. Goes with that industrial look of the build, doesn't it? Probably. The tent rod's bolted in and the tent screwed down. It's time to see if it can fully close up. This is the tense yet exciting bit. And to stop it crashing down like before, I've simply just tied some rope to it so I can let it down slowly. So with it all working, great news. It was time to wrap it up to protect it from any rain or anything on the journey up to the campsite. Now, I'll be honest here, the video I'm showing where I'm wrapping up with an old tarp, this didn't work. I gave it a test run down the road and it all just ripped up and tried to fly off the car. In the end, I used some old damp liner I had lying around from an old job. I was running out of time, so I couldn't actually film me putting this on the car, but it worked a treat, and you'll see me taking it off when we get to the campsite. But anyway, after the 170-mile jaunt up to the campsite, it was time to put my tent to the test. By the time we'd got there, it was already getting dark, so the quicker we could get this tent up, the better. Luckily, my tent was an absolute breeze, and it took almost no time at all to get it set up, which gave us more time to pitch my friend's tent and sort out our living quarters tent as well. That's like mint. Is it? I didn't film very much because of the rush to get everything sorted and get the kitchen all set up and everything. But yeah, what a cool evening. And I'm going to have to say, major warning, my ugly mug is going to appear right up next to the camera, all close and personal, so might want to shield your eyes a bit for that. Lighting's a bit on the dim. So yeah, first night in the roof tent. The holiday itself started off a bit weird, but the roof tent, the main thing here, absolutely amazing. Like, really, really good. And I've had people compliment how cool it is, so
That's awesome. That's the first one of my projects. But yeah, here we are. Just got my single bed in the middle here. Ample amounts of space. I'll have to show it all in the morning, I think, when there's more light.
I was going to record more in the morning, but unfortunately I had a pretty rough sleep. My back was killing me. It turns out, because I failed to check my airbed, when I unfolded it I found out the inside was all mouldy. This isn't the first time this has happened as well. Should really learn from this. But, you know, this is a good excuse to pack my tent away and go to the shops. So let's see how quick it is to pack it away once there's some bedding and odds and ends inside the tent.
How quickly
can it go back down is the question. Oh, the bolts.
Yeah, don't forget them. Not very quick, is it?
That's all you got to do, really. So what? Not even more than 2.
It's almost 2 minutes.
That's how the bed feels, isn't it?
You can tell it's memory foam, it's just That's why I did say if you got everything out. Yeah. I won't lie, mostly what this has is wind noise.
So, down at the shops with my very peculiar looking roof ornament, there was another problem.
That's not good, they've run out of airbeds. That'll fit in my tent anyway. Looks like we're going to have to go shopping around. Oh, this is the wrong time of year, as you can tell by the Christmas stuff. I'm going to have to get a double.
Will it fit?
Should do, it's a 3-man tent. Just a bit of old tent repair. Yeah, that'll do. I got better here because I started doing it in between the stitches. Yeah, the old zip broke. But hey, it's got 3 doors, so we can get rid of one. I will cut the ties off, make it look a bit better. Well, that's the new bed set up. Might have to move the light now. It makes it look small in here having a double bed, but yeah, fits a double bed with this much space to the side. Oh, this feels better. Oh, that feels so much better than what I had last night. I feel so stiff after last night. Wasn't me. Yeah. I keep leaning over here and it's all creaking. It's not.
It's creaking, it's bending.
Well, I should have used thicker board.
Bending down the lower standing.
Ew.
That's why it's creaking.
I shall try vacate.
tripping on the dark side. Yeah, dirty, dirty, I feel so dirty. Dark sky only. Dirty, dirty, I feel so dirty. Dark sky only. Yeah. I guess no one's listening. I'm like a strong wheel pushed by the wind of emptiness. Waiting for the end to strike a chord. Oh yeah. I wish I had no more prayers, no more questions, no more wars, no more shivering, no more famine and hunger. At this time of my life, at this time of my life, dirty, dirty, dark sky only, dirty, dark sky only. Don't believe what I see, and I know I'm right, but dark sky only. Don't believe what I see, and I know I'm right, but dark sky only. I'm tripping on the dark side. I'm tripping on the dark side. I'm tripping on the dark side.
This day was particularly windy. On the one hand, this is good. I wanted this tent to survive strong winds due to PTSD from one of my other trips this time of year, and it fared really well. My tent was not going anywhere. However, I was still rather paranoid about the living tent blowing away. Put up some towels to dry, and the wind's making short work of that. I feel like we're going to end up with sandy towels very shortly. The roof tent is putting up with the wind, no real problem. It just gets a bit noisy at night. But like, it's screwed down, and it's a pop-up tent, so it's just going to pop back up. Wind on the front or back, it barely moves. The only worry is the bigger tent. The tent we're trying to actually sort of live in, with the cooker and the kitchen stuff. Your tent's actually trying to fly away, even though it's the smallest one. Yeah, as long as this, I mean, worst comes to it, I can take this tent down, shove it all in the car, but it means you've got nowhere to do anything, nowhere to sit, nowhere to cook food or eat. I'll have to just get the cooker like under there, like pegging some more blankets or something there. All the time it's dry, that is still an option. Now, I actually originally had the idea to have some sort of tarp or cover that would be pinned into the top board here, and then it could be draped down to kind of cover up this area, thus giving you an extra sort of waterproof living space. So maybe you could have a chair and a little cooker under here. Not very big, but it does add a little bit more space underneath the tent when it's pitched. And then once folded up, this tarp could then turn into a cover for when you're driving around. However, time and the logistics of figuring out how this was going to work, I didn't get around to doing it. So perhaps a part 2 is in order. Because at least that tent definitely won't blow away, and is big enough for 2. Your tent shouldn't blow away. But I'm getting PTSD from last time with this tent.
It was very quick.
this is like half the size of my other tent, and it's still getting quite gusty. But we'll see. It's meant to be the worst day of the week. Sun's out though.
Technically, yesterday was the worst.
We weren't meant to have sun out, and it's pretty warm. Actually, without the wind, that sun would be a bit too warm. Tent's going well, but I have noticed I'm missing a nut and a washer there, and I don't think I forgot to do that. I did upbreak that one because it kept snapping. I mean, it's not caused any problems it coming off, but that's not ideal. We did also notice, and I don't know if I've just forgot or whether it's also worked its way out. I'm missing look, these are all still tight, but I'm missing the nut and washer on this as well. Where are they? So that's confusing. Everything else is fine. I don't know if I'm forgetting them or they are mysteriously rattling in certain areas and working themselves loose, or I forgot to tighten them. Surely I would have noticed this one falling off though. I guess the friction fit of that bolt holding it's held it in, but like, where's it gone? I'll just like push on that area.
Where was it this one?
I think it's on the hinge. That's just the combination of the foam disintegrating and all the sand from the pitch is just loads of it.
So there it is, the roof tent. A very fun and cool build, and if you ask me, it went really well. I apologise there wasn't much video footage of me away. I was just too busy having a nice time, which in a way was really good because it proves the tent did its job really well. And while it may not seem like it, I actually spent a week away in this tent and every night was absolutely flawless. So I thought we'd use this time at the end here to go over the pros and the cons of this build. But first I think I'll talk about what I actually set out to do with this build. Like I said at the start, I'd seen these adverts for these roof tents, but they were well out of my budget range. So I thought, I'm going to build one myself for a lot cheaper. And the main things I wanted to achieve was a quick setup and pack away time, much like the ones you can buy, as well as it being strong enough to withstand some of the heavier winds we get in the October months. So let's start with the positives. All in all, I think I did a really good job of getting what I wanted here. The setup time was really quick, the packing away time was quick if you're going to head off to the shops. Maybe not if you're on the long journey home, but we'll get into that later on. My super simple, crude hinges worked an absolute treat, they were flawless. Same can't be said for my tent rod brackets. They were a little bit over-engineered, not in the clever way, but they did the job, they held in there and gave me no problems and allowed the tent to fold up perfectly. The tent choice was absolutely brilliant. No issues with getting wet, no issues with condensation, absolutely ample space, a nice looking tent as well I might say, all very good there. Which realistically we should expect from a tent of that value. One of the reasons I never mentioned as to why I got this tent was a lot of the cheaper tents were marketed towards festivals and events like that. They kind of seem more like a one-time use. If you've ever seen the news articles over here at the end of festivals where all the tents and crap is left everywhere, you'd understand what I mean. Most of them were single-skinned and just didn't seem that good. I didn't want to spend all this time and effort on this build to have the tent just fall apart on me. Why get a crap tent for all this effort, you know? And now we come down to the cost. I built this for not even a third of the price of what the cheapest roof tent I could find was. I've made up a very rough list, and I mean very rough. A lot of this stuff I didn't need to buy, but I factored in if I had to buy all the stuff outright, including like full lengths of cable tray for the few bits that I used that I had scrap lying around anyway. So the plywood, the paint, the tent, the cable tray, the full lengths of metal, nuts and bolts, the ladder, all of it. And to buy it all now, again it's rough, I just googled the items and took the cheapest I could find. It cost £303, which I think is very good value, I might say so myself. And of course, like I say, a lot of the stuff I used I had scrap lying around, so I built it for way less than that. So the cost point, I did an amazing job. When it comes to the looks, It looks pretty cool. I think the tent does most of the work. It's quite a neat looking tent. The cable tray and all the rods, it does look a little bit, yeah, doesn't look the best. It looks a bit thrown together, but that's kind of what it was. It's not a professional build, it's a DIY project, so yeah. Like I said, I spent 7 nights living out of this tent. It was absolutely amazing. Climbing up on top of the car, feeling so up high off the ground, felt great. You felt safe and comfortable. And being up off the ground meant it was warmer because the ground wasn't sucking any heat out of you. It was just a really nice experience. Comforting is the word that comes to mind when I think of sleeping in that tent. So I guess we better get on to the cons. There's a few of them. We'll start off with the flexing, because this isn't a big con, it's just a little bit uneasy. As you could see, and I brought it up a lot in the video, using the 12mm ply, obviously plywood flexes anyway, it was quite flimsy looking. If you moved about on the platform or stood or sat anywhere, it would flex. That was going to happen. While it felt a little bit unnerving, there was no chance of it breaking. It just didn't look as strong as it could be. I think the best way to sort this, rather than using 18mm ply, which is an option, but that would double the weight, I think the better option is to have an extra set of bars that fold out from the main roof bars and then latch in where the ladder is, providing a completely stable support frame. Other cons, my tent brackets were a bit of a faff around. My efforts to stop some of the flexing and keep the boards level with each other, having to put those bolts in just made more setup and taking down time. Likewise with the pegs that go into the ground on the corners, more setting up and more time taking down. While this didn't add that much extra time, in an ideal world I wouldn't need these at all and the supports would just fold out from underneath. One of the biggest downsides to this build, and my friend mentioned it when we were packing away,
So far, it has taken us basically 25 minutes.
was the cover for going on the journeys. While this cover wasn't necessarily essential, it was better for the longer journeys in case it rained, just to keep rain from getting in the tent, and it kind of covered up how weird the thing looked while folded away. If I had more time, I would have thought of a better way of covering this, perhaps a tarp with ropes through the eyelets, or maybe a proper zippable carrier would be very good, or something inbuilt that then, like I mentioned before, turns into an extra living area. That would be really cool, but I didn't have the time. But yeah, we spent about 20 minutes trying to get these 2 bits of old damp liner sheets on top, and then putting the rope all around it and then lashing it all together just took forever. Another con that I didn't actually mention or record is when I went out to get to the airbed, we'd just thrown 2 straps right around the whole thing just to stop it from opening up or anything silly, and they rattled like, I can't say what I want to say. Oh man, I've never heard anything so loud. They were rattling so much. The wind was making them rattle and vibrate so much, it just rattled all through the car. We eventually moved them into a position where they didn't, but that's another thing. I feel like this needs some latches, some physical latches to latch it down into place rather than having to throw lashing straps over it all the time. That would save time and the noise. But from memory, that's all the cons I can think of, so not too many. All of these could be ironed out with a revamped version in the future. But as it goes, I think I've met my criteria really well, especially as time was another massive restraining factor in this build. I only had about 2 weeks to build the whole thing while working and sorting out YouTube and all that at the same time. So all in all, I think it went really well. Anyway, I hope there's something you can take away from this for your own projects, or inspiration to go out adventuring yourself, or if not, just a bit of entertainment. I hope you have enjoyed watching. So, if you love watching me dive headfirst into projects like this, do be sure to subscribe, because I'll be doing more fun projects like this. And for the few legends that have made it this far through, thank you so much for watching, it means so much to me. Do be sure to drop a comment down below if you have any questions about the roof tent, or any suggestions, or even constructive criticism. Or you just want to talk about the roof tent and the holiday, do check out the comments. But for now, I thank you all again, and I'll hopefully see you again in the next video.